So
Mhm.
this idea that it's somehow like a shithole because you don't have access, you as an American, um, you're not able to talk to a North Korean. It's like they don't want to talk to you. I'm sorry, like most of you hate them. Like not you, obviously, but like most Americans like believe pretty much everything about yeah.
But here's the thing: the the Americans that actually hate North Korea,
Mm,
they're they receive the hate based on hearsay.
mhm,
I'll give you an example. You have a mother and a father, and it doesn't work out between the mom and the dad. And so, the dad ends up having to leave. And the mom will start talking to her kids and talking bad on the father. And as they're talking bad about the father, the kids develop this idea of their father in their head and they immediately start to hate him.
mhm,
But then they grow up and then they find out, oh, well, I've been trying to get custody of you guys and I've been trying my best to be in your life, but your mother just wouldn't let me. Or I tried to come around, and every single time I did, your mother would push me away. So, and I wanted to be there, but I couldn't.
mhm.
And so they had this skewed idea to hate that person when in reality it was because the mother was bad mouthing the father.
Yeah.
And so they didn't know that he was an upstanding guy that it just didn't work out between them, but he still wanted to be there for his kids. And it's
Mhm.
the same thing with the United States in regards to DPRK. Is
Absolutely.
that constantly being told, oh, DPRK is like this, DPRK is like that. Much for joining the show. Nice to have you. It's a privilege.
Thank you so much. I've never actually done one of these before, so any chance I get to talk about the DPRK or North Korea is obviously really fun. So thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I discovered you on Twitter, and you were talking about some facts regarding DPRK, and I think the one thing that is on everybody's mind now, I had on Jaeyoung Park a
Mm,
few months back talking about some facts about North Korea as well, DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea,
mhm.
and so there's a lot of facts that were there, but uh, to weave through that misinformation, disinformation. The first question I want to ask is DPRK democratic? Because there are people who are responding, even in my tweets, that are saying,
Mm.
it's not, it's repressive and blah, blah, blah. Can you give me just a quick rundown of
Yeah.
the democratic process in DPRK?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what we mean by democracy, right? So it's supposed to be this system in which, you know, everyone has a voice, everyone can participate in the democratic process, right? But that, you know, isn't really the case in the US because there's all of these initiatives that are taken to stop people from voting, you know, ID laws, et cetera, mailing like voter registration lists, the fact that voting is not on a holiday. So people have to take time off work to do that, which automatically excludes the poorest in America.
Yeah.
The DPRK is actually there's multiple levels of collaboration. So I would call it not. I would say it's not really like an adversarial system. It's not really a system where you're trying to win and beat the other guy so that you can grab more power. It's very much a like a collaborative system. So
Mm.
there's politics at like the town level, which is your direct community, and you can get involved in that if you want. And then there's politics at you know, the city, and then the largest body in the DPRK is the workers. Well, the Supreme People's Assembly. So that is where all the major decisions will like be made about the DPRK. So a lot of people talk about like the Kim family, right? They're the most common accusation that gets leveled is usually just that the Kim family, it's a monarchy, right? It's a hereditary monarchy, and they say that that they're president forever, right? Like supreme leader forever.
Mhm.
Um, I think it really depends on so Kim Jong Un doesn't have supreme executive authority over Korean politics. He doesn't even have a veto. His power is actually just one single vote. So he has the same amount of power as anyone else in Korea. And then there are delegates that are sent from each of the like regions of Korea to make sure that the needs of like different parts of the country are looked after, and then those are brought to the Supreme People's Assembly. The other thing is that there's a misconception that there's only one party in Korea, right? The Workers' Party of Korea, which isn't the case. There's actually three official parties, and then there's different trade unions. There's an association of Korean women, like specifically for women's issues, and things like that. So yeah, I mean it. So, I think a lot of the time people think that the only way a democracy can be a democracy is based on if it's completely a copy of like the US system, right? So they'll say something like, "Oh, they only have one party." There's a I forgot who it was that said it, but I believe he was an African leader. He said something like, "America only has one party, but because of American decadence, they have two of them." Right. So basically saying that the Republicans and the Democrats, they do the same things. They
Mhm.
might say that they are different, right? But realistically, they have many of the same policies. They don't serve
Yes.
the people.
Mhm.
Um, so having only a few parties in a country in which the entire political apparatus is made to serve the people is a completely different thing, than having only two center right parties as you do in America.
Mhm.
um, yeah, I mean, it's if you read the language of their constitution and their newspaper articles, the language is all about service, right? So you call the Kim Jong Un is called the supreme leader, but and he's the supreme leader of the Supreme People's Assembly, which means that he exists to serve the people. So the only body, the highest uh, authority in the DPRK government is actually that, um, which is supposed to be an aggregate of the people's will.
Okay. And you said it was more of a collaborative. So, because one thing that we have here in the United States, and it's pretty undeniable, is the fact that we have brought competition into our political process instead of
Hmm.
collaboration.
Hmm.
It's red versus blue.
Yeah.
It's the footballification, if I
Hmm.
can make a new word,
Hmm.
of this political system. And so, really, there's winners and losers. But the thing is, like, if there's winners and losers, that means that there's some of the people win and some of the people lose. When in
Yes,
reality, it should be all the people that win and none of the people that lose.
that's right. Yeah.
And I think it's important that we start to look at governments like DPRK and say, okay, so the Kim family
Hmm.
that has been, uh, you know, been the principal representatives of DPRK
Mm-hmm.
for as long as they have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will say to them that's a dynasty. But I also question, for instance, the dynasty of the Roosevelts. I
Yes,
question,
absolutely. There are political dynasties in America as well, right?
yeah,
The
the
Kennedys,
Kennedys.
yeah. And to pretend that there aren't, to pretend that the cream always rises to the top in American politics is just false, right? It's demonstrably false. There are certain families in that country that cultivate, they have the Ivy League connections, they have the internship opportunities. You can go clerk for a Supreme Court justice if you want, like if you're connected like that. That's also not really the case in the DPRK. So if you're someone that is really interested in politics, you can become a representative. You can become a politician if that's something that you're interested in, but you're not going to get rich from being a politician. You're not going to get these kinds of
Mhm.
like the APAC donations, the lobbying groups. That doesn't exist. So basically, I would say that it's probably easier to become a delegate in the Workers' Party of Korea than it would be to become a delegate in America. Like I don't think that's an extreme thing to say. That you have free education, first of all, like guaranteed education up to grade 12, and then you have education beyond that vocationally if that's what you want to pursue, and you can change your education. So if you want to divert your path, you all you need to do is just you sign up for that program, you pass
Yeah.
whatever training they have for you. So I would say that we talk about like the levers of power, right? The people in the DPRK, the average people in the DPRK have more access to the levers of power than Americans do.
Yeah.
Something like 11% of that whole population is a member of a political party, but it's not just like, oh, you have a name, you're a card carrying member of the Democratic Party. You have to go to all the meetings, you have to attend the votes, you have to do the work, and it's hard work. So the people who end up being recommended for political office are the ones who like have a long track record of supporting the people, working for the people, community leaders, organizers, people who kind of inspire others, right? And yeah, I mean, to talk about the Kim family, every time I talk about the Kim family, I find it hard to contextualize for Americans because I'm always reminded of that. I think it was the Ayatollah of Iran or something. He said something like, you killed Soleimani. There is no American person that we could kill that would have the same impact because all of your heroes are fictional.
Yeah.
Like your heroes are Spider-Man and SpongeBob, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great burn. It was like my favorite comeback in the history of all time. So it's basically like that. It's hard to kind of underestimate or to state how important the Kim family is to the foundation and the identity of Koreans. It's not that they have their portraits up because they are forced to, right? They have their portraits up because they love them, because this is actually the person who led them out of what we call bondage, right? Out of occupation. Um, Kim Il Sung is like if like Nat Turner's revolution succeeded, and then he built an entire socialist state apparatus. That is like the level of dedication, and that's like the cachet that he had as a leader, right? So the first person in that family to become prominent was the goat. Like, I love telling people about him because if it were a movie, people would also love him. Like if they made a limited series about his life, he was a anti Japanese guerrilla,
Oh,
who,
wow.
yeah, he fought for Korea and Koreans for 20, 30 decades. And I'm talking about mountain warfare. They're freezing in the mountains of Manchuria, and they're crossing the border into occupied Korea to do raids. Um, he was such a like threat to them that the Japanese had like special units, and their entire mission was kill that guy, right? Like that's why you exist, to kill that guy. And they couldn't do it. They like all of those squads, hit squads, failed to kill him. Similar to Castro, right? He became a legend, right? As a guerrilla leader, as a military leader, he proved that he was worthy of that job. So he had a lot of so when Korea as a state was founded, he did have a lot of power. He had he was head of the military. He had power over the executive. He was also, I believe the title was president. And that what he did at the like near the end of his life was he gave up all like pretty much all of his executive powers, and they abolished the term president. Like that office doesn't exist anymore. So they Americans twist it. They say things like, "Oh, he's like the eternal leader, eternal president, Kim Il Sung." He's eternal because he like that he was the last one, and he will be the last president of that country until the end of time. That's why he's eternal. It's not because we work like they worship them as a god. It's not because it's just lip service. They genuinely actually love these people, and it has that legacy has carried on to the third generation of Kim Jong Un, because I mean, people in like politicians in North Korea in the DPRK, are like you can recall them at any point. So if they didn't want him to be the leader or like the let's say the figurehead, he would not be the leader. Like there's no Kim family is going to manipulate the votes to make sure that they stay in power. If the Kim family is elected, like every he sorry, not the Kim family, Kim Jong Un is elected as head every 5 years, and he has been elected this entire time that he was serving as the chairman.
Okay. So do you think there's, because of what you said about Kim Il Sung,
Yeah.
do you think that there's a lot of pressure on Kim Jong Un to live up to his grandfather's legacy and being in service to the people? Because I think about, like, for instance, another dynasty, which is the Bushes here in the United States,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they build up power. First, you start off with Prescott Bush. Then
Mm-hmm.
Prescott Bush had his son, George H.W. Bush, and then he had George W. Bush. And then also governor of Florida at one time was Jeb Bush. So you had a lot of that political dynasty that, happens here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder about the pressures that are felt by Kim Jong Un and I think he has a sister as well that's also
Mhm.
serving in the government as well.
Mhm.
So I wonder if between him and her, there's this weight of of the love for his father and grandfather, and it's like, can I live up to that?
Probably. I mean, yeah, personally as a human being, I bet there always is, right? Like when your father is such an accomplished, basically a hero, right?
Mhm.
I call Kim Il Sung the greatest Korean that Korea ever produced.
Right.
There are other contenders, but in terms of the modern age, I would say that he is the best because he is the only reason why there are any Koreans who live outside of U.S. hegemony.
Mhm.
That's due to him, pretty much. So it, when it comes to like his successors, I don't really know if he feels like it wouldn't be like a king where you think, oh well, this is my legacy. I have to, you know, do this, and this because my father won this battle, etc.
Mhm.
Um, because
Yeah.
it's the legacy of the people, right? Like
Yeah.
what is emphasized in all of their publications, in their art, their movies, their music, is that Pyongyang is the city that the workers built, right? So no matter what happens from here on out, if mistakes are made, we're still collectively building a strong and secure state for Koreans. Yeah.
So it reminds me first about Kim Il Sung is how the people felt about Fidel Castro.
Hmm. Yes.
Um, and also how they say the revolution continues even though they hold power, even though it is a worker controlled state,
Hmm.
how to them the revolution never stopped.
Yes.
Um, and of course, a lot of times people, talk about how it's very secluded from the rest of the world. But
Mm.
that seclusion, from what I've observed,
Hmm.
especially living in the belly of the beast in the West,
Hmm.
that seclusion is not created by the DPRK. That seclusion was actually created by the West
Hmm.
in order to isolate the DPRK so that they can't have more of a sway in the world and how it views the DPRK and how the ideas of a socialist state can go across the world. And it seems like it's more of trying to lock someone into a room instead of a person locking themselves into a room. There's a difference.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I don't remember which Bush it was, but I think it was the son. He called North Korea part of the axis of evil or something like that. Like that was the rhetoric that he used.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's like what countries has North Korea colonized? They have never had any colonies. They have not. Korea in general is a bit of a special animal in terms of history and geopolitics because we didn't want to expand and like have all these different colonies. We just wanted to be left alone on our peninsula to live without other people coming in, right?
Mhm.
um, it's if you look at the history of Korea, the history of Korea is like just all these bigger powers kind of coming in and just juggling with Korea, to usually to its detriment, right? So like the Mongols invaded. For a while, we were a vassal state to China. Japan famously occupied, set up a full like Israel style occupation.
Mhm.
um, so that comes around and they think the Japanese leave and they're like, okay, cool, cool. So we finally get to, you know, have our own government. All we want is Koreans to govern over Korea.
Mhm.
And they were genuinely not allowed to do that. So it was the Korean War was a war of regime change. Well, they tried, but they did
Yeah.
not succeed, right?
Mhm.
But that's what it was. So yeah, I mean, there's always talk in the media about like Korea's aggression, and you know, Korea is like they're warmongering, because they are militarized, and you know, they spend a lot of their GDP on the military, which America also does.
Wait, hold on. But isn't that the chamber pot calling the toilet white for the United States to
Yeah,
oh well, they're militarized. I'm like, wait, baby, the
seriously,
coin coming from inside the
seriously.
house.
Hmm.
First of all, second of all, when it comes to Korea, especially DPRK, like look what you did during the Korean War.
Hmm.
Look what you did to them.
Hmm.
So of course they're going to be on the defensive.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they literally watched because Koreans ain't stupid. Okay, they watched how the United States dealt with Libya,
Yes,
and
absolutely. Yep.
wasn't it? I'm blanking on his name, but he was head of the CIA, and he said that what he wants to do to DPRK is the Libya model,
Hmm.
and this is why DPRK was like, okay, we're gonna have a nuke
A hundred
because you
percent.
can't mess with us if we have one. And
Yes.
I know people, there are certain people who are anti-war activists, like for instance Scott Ritter, who
Mm.
says that we have to disarm, nuclear disarm. But here's the thing, and I liken to this analogy. You have a bully in the yard, and the bully has the biggest stick in the yard.
Hmm.
But then all the other kids pick up a stick too, and they're like, we got sticks too. Come at me if you want to.
Hmm.
The person who has that stick, that's the bully in the yard, has to put their stick down first so that it disarms everybody else. And they go, okay, he doesn't have the stick. Okay, we'll put ours down. Because the oppressor has to put down their tool of mass destruction
Hmm.
first before any other state does so. Because who's to say they're going to say, I'm going to put it down and then, ha, see, I got you. It doesn't work that way, especially when you have almost 800 bases around the world
Uh-huh. Yep.
and you're constantly doing regime change. You're
Hmm.
constantly got your foot on the necks of other people throughout the world by means of the corporations that run you.
Hmm.
And then you are upset that they now have the same weapon that you have. But last time I checked, North Korea never actually used their nukes on the civilian population.
Yes. Yeah. Only one country has ever done that,
Hold on,
right? Yeah.
right?
And they're the ones that want to talk about human rights abuses and warmongering, right? I also think a lot of people don't aren't aware of this, but the US is always doing what they call war games, um, which is what they call it, but what it actually means is they take a bunch of their tanks and their soldiers, and they line them up around the border, and they do firing exercises, and whatever it is militaries are doing. And there was never a peace in the Korean War. Like the Korean War ended with a ceasefire, but not a complete peace. So technically, this is still someone that you're at war with, or a country that you're still at war with, amassing soldiers around your border, and they're there more days of the week than they're not there. So I think it's something like 260 something days of the year. There are like joint ROK US troops around the border. So you think about, they spend so much money on their GDP, they're so militarized, they have conscription, all of this stuff, but they don't want to have that. This is not something that they just decided, like, we want to have a giant military because we want to, export our power to other countries overseas. They have to spend so much money, so much percentage of their GDP on the military because of America, because of these games, the so-called games, right? So at every moment, they are forced to act as if there will be an attack, right? Because that would just be the perfect sort of ruse, right? You just say, oh, it's just our annual war games. We do this every year, and then that could be the time that they decide to attack. They have no way of knowing that, and they are not going to trust the U.S. because the U.S. are basically like the equivalent of Nazi Germany to Koreans, right? So when America calls Korea evil, the evil thing they did was not say, okay, you guys can rule over us, right? That's what they did. They exercised their sovereignty. And when Korea says that the US is evil and that this is our enemy, there's a laundry list of massacres, atrocities. This was only like 2 generations back, so it's like within living memory, right? Yeah. So it's like, if Nazi Germany won and then turned around and manufactured all of this false information about a population that it genocided. That's essentially what's happening here, if we're drawing the parallel.
Yeah, as far as parallel is concerned, what the United States is doing to the DPRK is equivalent of a rich white person going, "Oh my God, they're doing reverse racism," and I'm just like, "Wait a minute, hold up." Are you being held back? As far as your employment opportunities, are you being held back by redlining? Are you being held by black codes, mass incarceration, medical experimentation, all these different things that the black population in the United States have historically been through? How are you being held back systemically from being having upward mobility and things like that, right? And it's like they really can't combat that. But if you ask people like me, like, how has it had? I got a laundry list of reasons as to why. Yeah. As to why, this system is white supremacist and things like that. And so it feels like every accusation is a confession. Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's what, because look, let's be real. Israel is basically just a United States outpost. Yes. So they're doing what they're doing to the Palestinians and the Lebanese and the Yemenis and the Iranians is basically they're saying, "Oh my God, they hate us for our freedoms." When
yeah, I mean, freedom.
Really them.
Yes.
Really doing all this stuff. It's crazy.
The war games that I was referencing. The war games are called Operation Freedom Shield.
Oh. Yeah. And unfortunately, I have a family member that fought in the Korean War. And it stinks because now that I know that it was really just about regime change, and the regime change is really to draw out the resources from the land and to you even subjugate the people as a resource for your corporate power. It makes me angry that they use my grandfather in such a way, making it think that we were fighting for freedom. Meanwhile, after the Korean War, when he got back, he was still treated as a second or really a third class citizen.
Yeah. Absolutely. Actually, during the Korean War, the Korean People's Army dropped leaflets down to like where they thought American soldiers would be,
Mm,
and the leaflets were basically saying like, "We're not your enemy." Like to black soldiers, right? Is
mhm,
that we have the same enemy actually, the same people who keep you know your people as an underclass within your country are the ones
mhm,
that want to turn this into an underclass colony in which they can extract the resources that they want and then just discard as necessary. Right?
mhm.
This is a colonial playbook, and it's very common. It's done almost every single time. Um, there's like all of these things where we see in Palestine right now is familiar because we're watching this happen in real time.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the people of and America, like American sort of think tanks will lie about Korea, and they'll say stuff like, North Korea is racist. North Koreans believe that they're racially superior to other people. But if you examine this claim closely, it falls apart because of what they've done, because of the way that they welcomed Black Panther Party members
Mhm.
to the DPRK. Um, when I don't know a lot about his later life, but Eldridge Cleaver,
Mhm.
he when he was I believe he was in exile from America because there was something, he was under investigation for something. He and his wife left to live in North Korea, and their daughter was born there, and they gave their daughter a Korean name. Yeah,
Wow.
their daughter. I don't remember what the name is. I'm sure someone in chat knows it, but yeah. And so, and while his wife was there, she received free delivery, free, maternity care, etc. She didn't pay anything for it.
Mhm.
And that's the kind of, I guess, the standard, and they prove it with their actions, right? They prove that they care about Palestinians because they,
Oh yeah.
provide aid. They
Mhm.
proved that they cared about the Algerians for the exact same reason. And yeah, they welcomed several Black Panther Party members and other Black radicals to Pyongyang. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, because of Western hegemonic power,
Hmm.
to get excuse me, to get to the DPRK is, it's kind of like having to go around the world just across the street. And that
I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
they make it so that it's extremely difficult to get there. And my question is, if the DPRK is so bad, then why not
Mhm.
let Americans go there freely so they can see how bad it is, so that when they come back, they go, "Ha ha! Thank God I live here in the United States."
Absolutely. I mean, and what they do is then they because they can't do that, right? Because if people went to the DPRK, they would just see a normal country, right? So they have to manufacture these stories about how, like, cameras aren't allowed, you can't take pictures, there's no cell phones, and like
Mhm.
a guide walks you around, like, the entire time they watch you,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah.
um, but, like, again, this is a country that they're still technically at war with, and these are citizens of a country that they still are at war with. So if they are, like, watching them while they wander around Pyongyang, I don't really see the problem with that, right? Like, I don't. It's People do go to the DPRK, and I know people who have known people who've done their doctorate at, like, Kim Il Sung University. So yeah, like, they welcome foreigners. It's just they they don't really have diplomatic relations with a lot of places, right? Like they don't have trade relations with a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always just tell people like, just you don't have to listen to me, like whatever. Just go on Xiaohongshu or Red Note and
Mm-hmm.
just search for the Korean word for Korea, right? What they call it, Chosun.
Yeah.
Um, or even just search the emoji in the app, and you'll see videos from people who live in North Korea who like are just filming their daily lives.
Wow.
But yeah, yeah, it's readily available, and there are like, you know, Chinese exchange students. There people from North Korea vacation in China and Russia. Like they're given like, I think it's like 2 weeks off minimum per year. And if they want to, they can go to China, or they can go to like any number of countries that, you know, isn't actively embargoing them, isn't actively hostile against them. So
Mhm.
this idea that it's somehow like a shithole because you don't have access, you as an American, um you're not able to talk to a North Korean. It's like they don't want to talk to you. I'm sorry, like most of you hate them. Like not you obviously, but like most Americans like believe pretty much everything about, yeah.
But here's the thing: the the Americans that actually hate North Korea,
Mm.
they're they receive the hate based on hearsay.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. You have a mother and a father, and it doesn't work out between the mom and the dad. And so, the dad ends up having to leave. And the mom will start talking to her kids and talking bad on the father. And as they're talking bad about the father, the kids develop this idea of their father in their head, and they immediately start to hate him.
Hmm.
But then they grow up and then they find out, oh, well, I've been trying to get custody of you guys, and I've been trying my best to be in your life, but your mother just wouldn't let me. Or I tried to come around, and every single time I did, your mother would push me away. So, and I wanted to be there, but I couldn't.
Hmm.
And so they had this skewed idea to hate that person, when in reality it was because the mother was bad mouthing the father.
Yeah.
And so they didn't know that he was an upstanding guy, that it just didn't work out between them, but he still wanted to be there for his kids. And
Hmm.
it's the same thing with the United States in regards to DPRK. Is
Absolutely.
that constantly being told, oh, DPRK is like this, DPRK is like that. And which also brings me to this tweet that was uh,
Oh my god, yes.
this
This
person. I
tweet,
don't know who
yes.
this person is, but
I nobody knows.
yeah,
He's a creator of Epic Mealtime, which I don't think has been relevant since the
yeah,
early 2000s.
yeah.
So,
So, I'm sorry. Go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I just, this is, you know, I look at stuff like this and I want to reply to it. And this in particular, I wanted to do kind of like a deep dive response to it, but
Mhm.
I was like too tired to break it up into like, you know, the perfect tweet thread or whatever. So sometimes, sometimes because this is something that America and other propagandist countries do, right? It's the fire hose of disinformation, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like they lie and you're gathering up the resources to debunk their lie, but they're already moved on to the next lie. And they
Mhm.
just, it's another and another and another
Mhm.
constantly. Which is by design to exhaust you, right? Because it's harder to fact check individual things than it is to just spew BS, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, okay. The DPRK is recognized by the world. Okay, well, first of all, who's the world, right? Like, the world means the West, right? And their allies. That's that's the way it always is. It's like the US,
Mhm.
UK, France, etc., etc. That's what the world needs. Repressive. See, the other thing about these kinds of tweets are that they're vague and they never define their definitions, right? Because that way they can move the goalposts. So repression and human rights. North Korea is one of the worst on the planet. It's not beautiful, and it's definitely a horrible dictatorship. No freedom of speech, press, or political opposition. Okay, so I think it is beautiful, actually, and I think the original tweet that this is responding to is correct. It's a beautiful socialist country. And what do we mean by beautiful? It's not like these like extremely expensive looking buildings everywhere. It's clean streets where their buildings are appropriately maintained. It's public art that exists to be aesthetically pleasing so that people can look at it. There's public art everywhere in the DPRK, and no ads. Right? Like you'll never see like a billboard being like, "Oh, buy this brand." That doesn't exist. It's on this day, the workers achieved this, like they built this factory or something, and it's like a painting of the workers, right? So yeah, I mean, repression and like political opposition. Political opposition, like I said, is built into the system of governance of the DPRK, right? As in, you are allowed to form another political party if you want to. It's just that, like, when they vote in the assembly, that's not them actually fighting it out, like in that chamber. They're just confirming so they'll look at a bill and they'll say, okay, so all of these committees signed off on this. Does anyone here have any concerns? You each get one vote. It's majority vote, and that's how it's passed, right? So it's not like you can't have an opinion that is against the state. Like yeah, I mean, and human rights is always a very interesting accusation to me, at least, because I never know what they mean. Like our freedom, our rights, whatever. Because people in the DPRK, they constitutionally have the right to housing, to food, to clean water, to education. These are all like enshrined as the very basic human rights that the state has to provide to you.
Yeah.
And the United States it doesn't even have freedom of speech, right? Like you were right when you said every accusation is a confession. They disappear people in North Korea for criticizing the state. Well, they just did that to several international students, right? Like that is something that they do, or they talk about elites and they say, oh, only the elite people can live in Pyongyang, or a couple of families like rule over everything, which is also America. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's also South Korea, right? Like the family that owns Samsung is like a shadow government, basically. So I mean, yeah, there are. It's not unlimited freedom. Like you don't have the right to steal all the water in California, like the freaking Resnicks did, right? Like I don't know if you, they're actually, it's actually insane to me how they've been able to get away with stealing like most of California's water. That would never happen in the DPRK, right? Like you don't have freedom to make profits that never end, right? Or to pollute the environment. right? This like, I know you've seen some of the videos where they show like the countryside of the DPRK, and it's all green, and it's like, it's beautiful. There's like a lot of beautiful nature around, and that's on by design, right? Like they have planned their goal, like they have goals for the next 5 years, right now they're doing like a big push to kind of build more homes within like the rural areas. That's like one of the big focuses. Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. This is perfect. Yeah. And people see this and they're like, oh well, these are probably empty, which I don't know why you would bother to do that. To build a house and let it sit empty. It's not like in capitalist societies where you have like a housing market. Like there's no housing market where people can be priced out of housing, and they houses sit empty
Mm-hmm.
with nobody in them, and then people are sleeping on the streets. That like homelessness just is not a concept that exists to the people of the DPRK.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually talked to Judge Park about that, as far as um, about the housing situation, where really they don't have homelessness.
They don't.
And it's one thing. It's kind of interesting when people talk about housing, and when you look at the streets of DPRK,
Mhm.
whether they be rural or they be urban, I don't see one bit of trash. And people say, well, that's selective. You only see, you know, the nice parts. And it's like, okay, well, I haven't seen anything from anyone who has defected from North Korea,
Mhm.
any video of anything that looked dilapidated, that looked unkept
Mhm.
at all.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
Because
any video.
the people that are whose job it is to clean the streets and to maintain the parks and the buildings, they are respected. They are paid well. I'm pretty sure like some of the highest paying jobs in the DPRK are teachers, right? So if you and they have all these, they have like a ridiculous amount of medals and like awards and commemorations for not just military things, but for everything. So if you're a dedicated street sweeper who has served, the people for like 20 years, you're rewarded for that service.
Mm,
You get raises, you get certain perks to say thank you, basically. um so yeah, I mean, I think there's no incentive to clean up parts of like a city. Like I live in Toronto, so I wouldn't just go and like start picking up trash on the middle of the street, because there's no incentive, right? Like I have no connection to that street. um, but in the DPRK, it's like, no, this is actually our road. This is our neighborhood. So we want to make sure that it is beautiful. And also that people not only they people don't just deserve housing, they deserve good housing, right? They deserve a certain level of housing, right?
mhm.
I mean, I mentioned to you privately that like I was trained and worked as a social worker in Canada here. And honestly, it's not really housing if you're living with bed bugs for like 10 years. You know what I mean? Like that is not, like, we should not be asking people to put up with this just because they're poor, or just because they're disabled and they can't work, right? It's honestly, it's ludicrous. The
Yeah.
some of the I mean, it does get me kind of angry, and then I'm just like, okay, I understand it's not your fault. because the US government requires you to hate these people who've actually never done anything wrong to you, who actually don't even hate you as like an individual American, because every single time there's like a huge like police brutality scandal in the United States, like the Michael Brown case, the DPRK will release, like, their news media talks about it, and they talk about how American police are murderers, and the killing of Mike Brown was unjustified. When George Floyd was murdered, they talked about that extensively. So yeah, I think the average person in North Korea, I would say, probably is far better educated politically than the average American, by design, and B, like, they're far more empathetic to the plight of the average, homeless American, than other people in the same country.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I this thing, like, the idea of solidarity is something that Korea is really, they do well, right? It's like, we will support you because you're an underclass, because you're oppressed, regardless of what, like, basically it costs us. So if we're going by good guys and bad guys and human rights abuses and all of this stuff, it's like, well, human rights, but, like, it's not apparently a right to not be homeless in America, right? Human rights, but you're told you don't deserve food to eat.
Yeah, they actually tried to put that in the, I think it was the UN human rights,
Yes.
where they tried to put in that food is a human right.
Mhm.
And the only two countries that actually voted against putting that as a human right were United States and Israel.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And they're the ones who want to tell the rest of the world about these evil Koreans, right? Like, they're a threat to us and they're a threat to our way of life. It's like, no, actually, it's the opposite. You're the threat to their way of life, because all they want is to be left alone and for you to get out of their neighborhood and to stop threatening them, basically, by showing off your guns and your new missiles, and just get out. Like, they want, it's an indigenous success story, right? Like, these are Koreans are the indigenous people of that peninsula, and they want to have self-governance, right?
Yeah.
They want sovereignty, and that should be okay. But a lot of the times we see that it actually isn't okay if you have, if you have melanin in your skin, right? Like, right? Like, these are demands that if the US, if a white country did these things, they'd be like, this is very reasonable, actually. So yeah, that's generally what I have to say about that tweet. To me, freedom comes from freedom, like, to be a person and think, and have ideas and thoughts that aren't based on and directly tied to your ability to eat, your ability to survive, your ability to, all of those things are taken care of for you at the baseline minimum. And so people have the ability to pursue what it is they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're just short on time, but one of the things, there's one question. You have time for one more question?
Oh, absolutely. Sorry. I honestly, half the time I talk to people about the DPRK, and it's just like automatically like a slur, or it's just like, oh, you're brainwashed. Oh, like, blah, blah, blah. You get paid by the Korean government to spread this stuff. And it's like, they don't have the money to do that stuff, guys. Like, they are fighting to build their own state. they don't care what you guys think about them.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
honestly, like all the crazy stories and stuff, it's like they don't give a damn. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, it's just anyway. What? Sorry, what was the? I digress. What was the last question?
Well, okay, so there was something. I can't find a tweet for some reason, but
Yeah.
somebody said something to the effect of getting free beer in the DPRK.
That was
Clear
sweet.
this up for me, because I'm actually quite curious. Are they literally giving to their citizens free beer in
Yes.
DPRK?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are giving. It's. I think it's about
Uh,
5 liter. Is it 5 or 8 liters of beer every month? Free beer. Yes. So every person gets. I think it's like 30 pounds of food or something a month, regardless of whether or not you're working. Right. Yeah. I know. I know. And
I
the
need to get my
beer.
passport. Where's my plane
Yeah.
ticket at?
The beer is like it's apparently pretty good. It's like microbrew, like they have like a whole like beer bro culture in North Korea. There's like different breweries and people really love beer. They love beer and they get it for free from the government, but then also you can just buy it with like whatever you earn at your job, and it's free. Like it's not free, sorry, it's affordable. I know. It's so funny because as soon as I said that, Americans were like, hold up, wait a second.
What kind of sorcery is this?
Yeah, and it's funny because like I saw a Daily Mail article that said something like North Koreans get 6 liters of free beer a month, but they have to wear a pin that praises Kim Jong Un to get it. It's like no. Yeah, they.
I mean, look, I'm not a beer drinker. I really don't like the taste of alcohol like that. But if I did, I would wear a pin. Man, give me that pin. I'll wear it everywhere.
Exactly.
And what?
Honestly,
And
and
then
there's
on
also
top of it,
weed. There's weed.
huh?
There's weed.
Okay, so I actually had a question about that
Yeah.
because I heard that recreational marijuana is it's not illegal, but it's not like legalized.
Mhm.
It's just like okay, it's a thing, do it if you want, do it if you don't want, and it's kind of like it's not necessarily taboo.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it is taboo in a lot of throughout a lot of Asia, right? Like, and there are historical reasons for that. Um, and it's funny. It's so funny because like reporting on this is so weird because you'll have Vice being like, North Korea is a stoner's paradise, and then you'll have Radio Free Asia being like, oh well, in North Korea you get executed for having like a dime bag, right? Neither is true. Neither is true. It's basically like it's none of their it's not really any of their business. But I also think there's a difference, for example, between like the things that a country will just admit to, like that, oh yeah, our citizens can just smoke whatever whenever they want, or and actually like enforcing any kind of like law against it. So it grows in people's backyards. It grows in like wild, on like naturally on the street. You can pick it if you want. There's no It's not going to be like, I know. Okay, but one caveat is that it's not going to be like diesel kush 2099% like THC rate that'll melt your face off. Like, that's not what it is, unfortunately, because those are like capitalists who have an incentive to create the strongest breeds, and that's what they're doing. It's not cultivated, but you can grow it in your garden. No one's gonna come around and be like, "Hey, do you have weed in your garden?" And I can honestly pretty much guarantee you that people are not in jail for it, right? Like,
So, because things like drug possession, really, for the most
mhm.
part, it's what we like to call a victimless crime,
Yeah, yeah,
because it's you're kind of doing it to yourself, and so how can it be a crime if you're doing it to yourself,
hmm
right? And so I'm trying to be careful with how I present it, but if I want to smoke hookah, right?
hmm
Who am I harming?
yeah. I mean,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
And so it seems like to me that the DPRK, the government of DPRK, is like, why are we going to legislate what people do for themselves?
hmm
Like,
I
we're
Yeah,
focused on,
absolutely. Hmm
the material conditions of our workers
hmm
and how that affects other people. But if it's something that just affects you and you alone, and that's a personal decision, which also makes me wonder about the view, because I'm part of the LGBTQ community.
hmm
It's like
Yeah.
well, if you have a relationship, or if you're, with somebody of the same gender or what have you, it's like, what is it my business?
It,
You know what I
it
mean?
it isn't, and I like people will try to pull things from like various government whatevers and twist the words, but the reality is that there's always a reason for repression, right? So like in terms of drugs, what it was profitable to criminalize certain demographics of people
Sure.
for using certain drugs, right? So
Hmm.
that's why laws for different substances are different in America.
Hmm.
And the state is also making money off of your incarceration. It's making money off of all of these systems, so they have an incentive to restrict your freedom. Um, Solely because of that. In the DPRK, they don't care because as long as you're not harming other people, as long as you're not completely destroying yourself,
Hmm.
you have like a lot of personal freedom. Um, and I would say also that like a lot of the times people who are doing drugs are doing it because there's like myself included is we're doing it because capitalism is really messed up, and
Yeah.
it creates conditions like loneliness and isolation
Yeah.
that don't have a parallel in the DPRK, right? That's community. They have real community, and we don't have that because it's not profitable for our societies to be laid out that way.
Yeah. And I say this quite often. Trauma is a gateway drug.
Mm. Mhm.
And so because of that, we self-medicate in order to get through the pain that is inflicted upon us. And a lot of that pain is caused because the things that we need in order to thrive are gate kept, or they are paywalled. And
Yes.
so therefore we don't get it. So
Mhm.
we have to self-medicate in order to be able to escape. But if you have all your material conditions met, and if you have a sense of community,
Mhm.
the need for that self medication goes away. Or if anything, it's only used on a recreational basis just to let loose a little bit. But
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not.
Koreans love to party. we love we love a good party. We love to have, a
Oh, do
drink.
you now?
Yes.
Okay.
Korean
All right.
barbecues, we're kind of, people get loud. They get the Asian glow. They they start they
Tell
start,
you, I need to get my passport.
seriously,
I need to go.
seriously. Yeah. And people ask me that all the time. They're like, "Well, why don't you go live there?" I'm like, "Are you going to pay for my ticket? Because I will. Like right now." I'm broke. Like, I can't afford to go. Like, I can't afford to do all these different, to apply for citizenship. I can't afford to fly to, Pyongyang. But I would live there. I would. So I get accused of being like someone who like thinks that North Korea is a utopia, right?
Yeah.
Like people are like, "Oh, you think that they're, it's perfect over there. It's a paradise," which was also the rhetoric that we saw on that post, right? It's like a beautiful paradise. I believe that, but I believe that because it's a society that's ordered in a way that you have maximum power and dignity as an individual, right? It's a society where you actually matter, and that people, if you drop dead on the street, would help you, would care for you. It's and everything that they do in that country, despite the hardships and the lack of, for a while, Korea didn't have consistent electricity. They didn't always have the most nutritious food.
Yeah.
But there's always this idea that what you're working for will go back to your own community and back to the people. So if you work hard, all you're doing is helping your community grow and thrive. It's not being put into the pockets of someone who already has way too much money so that they can make more money. It's I mean, yeah, I would rather live in a country that's poor, like admittedly not a great, GDP, that has that kind of attitude than the richest country in the world where there's no safety net, there's no, room for mistakes, there's no, you're stuck on a path, and that's more than likely the path that you're going to be on for like the rest of your life. Right?
Wow. Look, I want this conversation to last longer, but
Yeah, I know you have, for sure, you got a lot, but I'm part of a streaming group. They're in the chat. We're called Juche Gang, and it's just people who talk about North Korea and love it. Every Tuesday we watch a film from, like, a North Korean film, so people can see like what kind of shows they have, etc. Stream and chat with me or on Twitter, whatever. But yeah, I always want to talk about Korea, and it's nice to have someone that doesn't immediately be like, "Well, you're smoking crack," which someone said to me under one of my posts, and I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, of course. I'm keenly interested, and in fact, I want to know what isn't the State Department telling us? What isn't the United States government telling us?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times they'll say, well, this government's like this and this government's like that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You guys were the ones that helped overthrow Mohammed Mossadegh.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You guys were the ones that overthrew oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name. Salvador Allende.
Mm-hmm.
And installed a dictator named Augusto Pinochet.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You guys are the same ones that have been, upholding people like William Ruto.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys had Kwame Nkrumah, and you guys have Muammar Gaddafi murdered.
Yes.
Thomas Sankara. So please don't come to me and tell me who my enemy is.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense, because the thing is, if you're oppressing me within your borders,
yes, 100%.
Then why in the fuck should I listen to you about who my enemy is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
look, I'm gonna tell you right now, China didn't give us Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we have homelessness isn't because of DPRK.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we don't have healthcare for everybody isn't because of Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
Damn sure ain't because of Cuba, because Cuba be sending doctors everywhere.
They're really good at it. Like
Cuba is the Oprah
yeah.
Winfrey of doctors.
You get a doctor. You get a doctor.
You get a doctor. Everybody gets a doctor. The thing is like, why am I going to listen to them when you guys have been in the work of oppressing and not just committing genocide against the Native Americans here,
Mm-hmm.
but also the genocide of my people, Black Americans, freedmen here.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the sin of chattel slavery, you guys don't even want to pay for it, even though it's owed us reparations.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, there's a reparation talk with people in Haiti right now are like protesting. They're saying that France like owes them. It's like France owes them like triple times over. You know, like France owes them literally every dollar they have.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's one of those things where and you mentioned Sankara. Sankara is like one of my favorite socialist leaders. I adore him. Gone too soon, obviously. But he said something like, you know, we can choose to have champagne for the very few, or we can have clean drinking water for everyone, right? We can choose to have this, like, you know, Beverly Hills in America where you can get everything you want, like on demand, but then also have people like lying in the streets and without shelter.
Yeah.
Right. And the sad thing about the American mindset is that they think that it must be fake, or that it has to be there has to be a catch to it, because they don't believe that like a good world is possible, because they've been beat down for so long by, you know, these elites and these corporations that they can't imagine another world in which, you know, the people rule, right? And so yeah, I think the last thing I want to say is that there's a Kim Il Sung quote that's also my favorite, where this guy asked him, like, do you believe in God? And he said, you know, the people are my God. I worship the people as my God, because only the masses are omnipotent and yeah, should always be obeyed. The masses can never be wrong, right? So
wow,
the people are my God.
Wow.
It's not, you know, APAC is my God. It's not the Sacklers are my God, right? It's
yeah. It's not that money's your God.
Oh yeah, of course. Money is just a means to an end, right? Like,
yeah, of course.
It's
Man, Julia, it was an honor. It was a privilege to have you. This conversation has been elevating as well as enlightening. I can't wait to have you back on, because I do want to have you back on to talk about news stories and things like that from your perspective.
Yeah, of course. And if you want to talk, you know, homelessness and systemic, you know, issues and things like that, all the time. Yeah. Thank you.
Definitely. All right. Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah. And look, I'll be talking to you in the interwebs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. That was a great conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was something that I've been wanting to talk about a little bit more, because a lot of times we have these preconceived notions in our head about these different socialist states. And why do I say socialist states, not communist states? Socialism is the vehicle to get to communism, right? It's not this, you know, you have a communist party that may run a state, but the state itself is socialist, where the workers own the means of production, and they also are the ones who have the power within the governmental structure. And so because of that, I I think that it is important that we start to shine more light on countries like DPRK, right? I would love to get somebody to come on to talk about Laos, and I would love to get somebody, somebody from Cuba to come on and talk about Cuba, talk about Venezuela. So yeah, I would love to get more people to talk about these countries as well, to kind of debunk a lot of the narrative that's happening. And that's one of the reasons why I think it's important that you support independent media, because every single, news in news media, whether it be corporate media or independent media, everybody has a bias. Every single one. The question is, where does that bias lean, right? You have the corporate media, well, it's in, the name, where they favor corporate power, right? And independent media, a lot of us, me at, Jaybefaunt channel, you have Savvy Sabs, RBN, we lean very heavily on the power of the people to determine and run their lives. And so our opinions are skewed in a way where it's maximizing the amount of power that all the people have so that everybody gets their material conditions met. And once your material conditions are met, that also influences culture. And that culture can breed more of a communal type of structure where you actually start to come together more and have more solid relationship between you and your neighbors. And this is one of the things that we're trying to facilitate. And so that's part of our leanings. That's part of my leanings, because I want humans to be the best version of themselves, and they can only do it by having their material conditions met and then having a culture that reflects that. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.